Hello, brick sculptors. Welcome to Brick Sculpt. This is Chris, and today we're going to talk about flowers. That's right, this is flowers, tips, tricks, and techniques. I've done a few videos similar to this in the past, but we are getting very close to the end of the spring challenge, and so I wanted to do something pertaining to May flowers. That's right, the spring challenge, April Showers Brings May Flowers, is coming to an end here at the end of April. So here is a reminder for you, and let's go ahead and talk about some technique. Now today we're going to cover the different kinds of flower stems and what you can do with them. And hopefully, this may be a little bit more elementary for some of you, but hopefully you can learn something from this and see some usages that you normally wouldn't see. This video is definitely designed to give you kind of the more fundamentals of what's available out there and how they work together. Let's go ahead and get started here. So we're going to talk about many different flower stems. The first one is this really little one. This is a somewhat newer part. It hasn't been around too terribly long. You see it a lot in reddish brown, but you can get them in bright green as well. They don't make standard green in this, so this is kind of the best option for flowers, at least I think it is, because it's very limited in colors. Now a warning, this video does have some alt brick stuff, and before you unsubscribe and click off the video, let me explain. There are certain pieces in Lego that are incredibly hard to get. There are certain colors that are impossible to get, so at certain times I do enjoy the use of an alt brick, and this is one of those cases. If there's one alt brick that I would recommend buying for your Lego city, it's this one. Now this is an official Lego part. I'll have the part numbers for these stems listed down below in the description, but this is a very difficult part to get. This is from the flower bouquets, and these go for like $4 or $5 a piece in genuine Lego. So I do buy them in alt bricks because I can get them for a few cents a piece, and they're not as great a quality as standard Lego, but they're pretty close and they work well enough. And it's more about the shape than anything, because it is a piece that Lego, if you're listening, after you bring back sand red, start mass producing those, because those need to be out there more. Next we have our standard 3-stem piece. This is the current version where it mounts into a open stud and has an open stud on top. And we're definitely not going to rule out the classic 3-stem piece. Now, a lot of people think these two are synonymous, and that's just kind of a newer version of this. While that is somewhat true, don't write this piece off, because there's a lot of usages you can do with this stem piece that are very different from that stem piece, and vice versa. So keep that one in your back pocket. It's got some things I love about it. It's got some things I hate about it, but we're going to talk all about it. And our last one here is going to be the 6-stem piece. Now, I will say for most flower applications, at least for the ones we're doing today, this is not the greatest piece, but this is a very useful piece for a lot of things. So we'll show you some things you can do with that as well. All right, those are your basic flower stems. Now let's go ahead and put some flowers on them. Now for the first one, the smallest one, unfortunately you can really only put one flower on there if we're using the modern standard flower piece. You can flip these upside down. They don't stick super well, but you can actually get 3 of them on there, but they do kind of fall off easily and they don't look great because they're upside down. So for the sake of this video, we're just putting one flower on there. Now next we go to the bouquet piece, and this makes a really nice tight little cluster of flowers there. So I think this connection is excellent and works really well for these flowers. This is why I find this piece almost essential, and at $4 a piece, not happening. Here we have the modern 3-stem piece with open stud. This works good for a lot of applications, but in my opinion, the flowers are spaced out a little further than I'd like them for most applications, but again, there's a lot you can do with this, and we're going to talk about it, but just having flowers on stems, this is not my favorite look. I actually think the flowers do look better on the old school piece. Number one, the stems are at a different angle, so they're a little bit more straight up and down. They're not straight up and down, but the angle is not as sharp as on the newer one. And 2, this doesn't have the open stud, but it has a stud, so there's different connection in the middle. But you can see here, next to each other, they look quite different. I'll get this up closer where you can see it better. They're definitely very different pieces. And last, of course, we do have our 6-branch piece with 6 flowers on it. A little bit busy, and these ones on the sides come out at a pretty harsh angle. So not my favorite usage for it, but there are applications that works really well. Now let's talk about stacking. One of the greatest things about these flowers, especially the modern 3-stem piece, this one here, is you can pair it with other parts. So if we take our smallest stem piece and we can put it right in the middle, we can add a flower there. Now it'd be nice to have 3 in the middle there, but it's better than nothing. Now again, here our bouquet comes in really handy because you get a nice little cluster there. It's a little triangular for me. I wish they were spaced out a little differently, but the height is perfect on this. So I do like to use this a lot where I stack those two together. If we use 2 of those 3-stem pieces, it gives a nice staggered look there in height, a little variation. It does leave a nice open middle, which doesn't always look the best, but they are very stackable. With the older stem pieces, you can stack 2 of them like this, and I think that's a great look. It's nice and full, good height variation, nice little cluster of flowers, and a lot more full than just a single. And here we added a 3-stem piece under a 6-stem piece. Now I'm going to tell you, I did put a spacer in here. So if you just try to stack these directly, the flowers get super close and they touch a lot, and it's pretty illegal. But if you put an extra one in as a spacer, just leaves a little bit of greenery in there, and then space out that bottom one, it makes for a really nice cluster. This will look great in a pot, maybe a very large bouquet. Yeah, that's a good look there. All right, next we're going to show how you can fill these out a little bit more by using 3-leaf pieces. So unfortunately for the smallest one, there's not enough room to add a leaf behind the flower, but you can put it at the base and give it a little bit more of a plant look. But when we get up to the bouquet style, yes, you can put 1 or 2 of them at the base, but you can also move 2 of them up. Now this bouquet has 3 different stems, so you can really only put on the 2 longer ones. This one here is too short, it'll touch too much, it'll touch the main stem. So 2 works, 3 doesn't, which depending on your application may be good enough, may not, but you can also, like I said, put them down at the base. Here we have our new standard 3-stem piece with the open stud, and it really fills it out a lot better. I think this looks a lot better than this, but it is a little empty in the middle. So a nice thing you can do with that, we can take one of the bouquet pieces with no leaves and stick it right in the middle, kind of combining this technique with a few leaves, and that would look really nice in a planter or a pot and fills out that middle really nicely. On the classic piece, a lot tighter in the middle, which is nice, and doesn't have that ugly open stud. I think that looks pretty good. I should keep in mind that on these longer branches, you could add 2 leaves. So you could have one of these have 2 leaves on it and fill in that gap a little bit. But I think the 3 leaves works well as well. And now for the 6th branch. Now this is going to look a little cluttered. This is a method I use when building certain trees. And it is important, if you are going to do this method, it's best, I find, to rotate the leaves. You'll see this top layer, they're all kind of sideways. Otherwise they contact a lot. So having those rotated makes it just fit a lot better. But does make it look a little busy and chaotic. But for tree building, this is a really handy method. And it does make almost a little shrub, a little rose bush, whatever you want it to be. Now you can take that 6-stem piece and just put it on the 3 more upward facing stems and just use these as extra greenery. That looks really nice. And I like this because as opposed to this 3 branch, even though we have the center filled, you get a much tighter cluster. It's kind of like having the bouquet, although it will fit 3 leaves instead of 2, but really tight in the center there. So there's not that awkward gap, which is nice. All right, we're going to change flower types here. That's enough of the modern standard flower. We're going to move on to the newer tulip pieces, being it spring. The tulip piece is a fantastic addition to the Lego collection. And the first thing with the smallest branch piece, these fit very nicely. They're a little bit smaller flowers. They connect a little differently. They don't have to be on as deep, and those work really well. I don't love the angle these come out at. Tulips are very linear flowers. They're very up and down, and these are kind of splayed out. So could use some work there. Same thing with the bouquet, just more spread out. So also not my favorite look for this piece. When we go to the standard 3-branch piece, even worse. And this just looks terrible, I'll be honest with you. But when we go to the classic, it is still quite tall, but the angle is much more appropriate. They're not as splayed outward, and tulips definitely look a lot more like that, just straight up and down, even though this isn't straight up and down. It's a lot closer. And of course, I did a 6-branch, which just looks absolutely ridiculous. I could not think of a way to use that unless I'm putting leaves on it. Now, getting to the next row here, adding leaves. For tulips generally won't have a big leafy leaf like this. Like I said, they're very linear, they're very pointy. They have kind of thinner, longer, almost like giant blades of grass for their leaves. They stick up quite a bit. So we're going to do it a little bit differently with the tulip here. We'll start with this small one here, and I basically just put another 3-stem piece there to act as the greenery. Again, the angle on these, pretty rough. I don't think that looks very good. We can do the same thing with the bouquet. Again, the angle's rough. This is just taller, and I think it's too tall. On tulips, a lot of times the flowers are kind of embedded down in the leaves. It's kind of like I said, like a sea of tall grass, and the flowers are down in there. If we double this up, we can put the greenery on top to get the height more similar. But again, the angle on this just doesn't look good. So this is an instance where I think the classic 3-stem piece is the best, because look at that. The angle is really good. You can put one on top here, getting the height about the same, and I think that looks great. And of course, I added a 6-stem on there. That just looks ridiculous. I can't think of a use for that at all. Now, these are just individual examples, but it's pretty cool to see what happens when you put multiple of them. So for instance, with the standard flower pieces, here we have 4 of them, and you can see all the gaps. It doesn't look great. Now you can tighten that up a little bit by using something like the bouquet, where the flowers sit a little closer. This is actually the sugar grade pattern. I just thought it worked out well for the flowers. But I like this one a lot better than this one. Now, in my city, I tend to use a lot of 3-leaf pieces. So I would actually favor this method here, where you have a lot more greenery with flowers on top. And this is a very similar setup to here. I did move them to the outside corners. It's not the sugar grid setup because the leaves were touching a lot. But I don't know, let me know what you think. I think this looks a lot better than this. But again, it depends on the type of flower, depends on where you're putting it. There's an occasion for all of these. And same thing with the tulips. This is the first one here with this angle. It's just not very good. It does not look like tulips, to be honest. But here with the old-fashioned 3 stems, it looks a lot better. Now, I showed this on this channel a few times, but I picked up these crazy pieces. The Lego doesn't make this mold. These are from Temu, I believe. And at first I thought, these are weird. The mold kind of isn't very good. The quality's not very good, but the shape is excellent for tulips. I first bought it for tall grass, thinking, hey, let's try this out as tall grass. I bought it to review it. I really wasn't going to use it. But I was like, those are perfect for tulips. And so I did the same basic thing as this, but with those. Doesn't that look amazing? So, well, Lego, if you're listening, make that mold also. All right. Now moving on to another mold of flower, we're going to do these ones here. I really like this mold of flower, but it works definitely better with smaller stems. So this is a super nice little bouquet. The angles look great. It's nice and tight. It's not all spaced out. So I think that works really well with this design. When we go to this design, it's still not bad, but it's getting a little far apart. I mean, the way these flowers attach, they do stick out a little further than like the standard flower here. Here we're getting into the ridiculous mode where that just looks terrible. But again, there's ways to modify these, and I'm going to show you that as well. On the classic 3-stem, not bad. The angle is definitely less severe and looks a lot cleaner. I do find that these don't attach well. They have very poor clutch power, so they always tend to knock over easily, even if they're kind of fresh. Most of the ones I own are super old. Most of the ones most people own are super old because they haven't made that in a while. But yeah, I wish it was a little tighter. And here it is on a 6-branch, which looks ridiculous. Okay. Now, just like our standard flowers, we can add greenery. But this flower is actually more similar to the tulip in how it attaches to the branch. So the spacing is going to be much different than the standard flower here. On the first one here, they're really not going to fit up top well. If you really have to, you can put one up top, but you can also just put it on the base like that. So a couple different options there. I don't love either of them, but use whatever works best for you there. Here on the bouquet, I think this looks really good. It fills out really nicely, doesn't leave a lot of space in the middle. That's a really good look for this piece, this flower. As we get to the more traditional 3-stem, spaced out a little far, don't love the look of this. I would tend to fill that middle in. So I would take a bouquet of these and put it right in the middle. This is why I order these pieces on from Gobricks. And if you're curious what they are, these are Gobricks. I order them from Gobricks. I don't order super often. Most of the stuff I bought a while ago for reviewing, but I do find these handy, and this is a piece I definitely seeked out because, again, I'm not paying Lego price for them. They're just way too hard to get. And you can't even find them. I mean, even if you were willing to pay that price, it's not easy to find sellers who have a lot of them because they are pretty uncommon. All right, here we are on the classic stem. I think that's a really good look. It's spaced out a little bit, but not horribly. You could add another leaf or two in there if you need to. And again, on a 6-branch, it turns into kind of a little ball, just like it does with the standard flower there. I also turned these leaves to kind of make everything fit nicely. Just like I did with the standard flower, you can do this just on 3 of these and get a little greenery. I don't love this because it's not super tight in the middle. It definitely works better with this flower than with that one. But just because of how they connect. This flower sticks on a lot further. This one kind of sticks up on the top. All right, another flower type here. This is a little bit newer. I haven't used these a ton. A little bit bigger than I like to use for a lot of stuff, but it does come in handy if you're doing some larger flowers here. So this is kind of this newer chrysanthemum piece, maybe. I wouldn't really call it a rose, but it's big. You can fit one of them on these little branch, little stem pieces, and that's all you're going to fit. They look really good on the bouquet. Nice and tight in the middle. Good cluster of flowers. That works out really nicely. Not so great on here. Again, this is going to get better with some greenery, but a lot of room in the middle. Now, combining these two would probably work out pretty nice. Well, I might not have enough space there. I didn't plan for this. Yeah, not enough space in the middle to combine them, unfortunately. They actually look really nice on the old-fashioned one. Spaced out really nicely. Variation in height. That looks good. And on the 6-branch, really big, full bouquet. You know, I don't know if you'd see this often, but in like a big pot or something, that could look nice. And now let's do it with some greenery. So here's a 3-stem with a leaf on it. That leaf is not going to work on the top on this one. There's just not enough room, so it's going to have to go down at the bottom. On the bouquet, you can put 2. The short one isn't going to fit a leaf, a 3-leaf, but that does look pretty cool. This fits really nicely. It does leave kind of an open middle. Again, you could put extra leaves on these longer ones. There's room to put another 3-leaf on there. I think this is probably the best looking one here, the old-fashioned flower stem. So again, don't rule these out. They're very different than the modern equivalent. So they definitely are worth owning both. And then here I have them on a 6-stem. I left the side ones off because they didn't fit, but that actually looks really nice. Very tight in the center. Just a little extra greenery on the bottom. I had to switch to dark green. I ran out of regular green ones. It's flip this around here. Lots of flowers. I'm hoping that this video inspires me to start my spring challenge build because I haven't even started it yet. I've been so busy with this show stuff and getting the city put together. I really need to get working on the spring challenge stuff. Another new flower piece. Probably not the best for these flower stems, but they're usually for more taller flowers. But the sunflower piece, this does fit on the classic stem. They have a really nice height variation on there. Also on kind of the newer equivalent, they work really well. That's probably the best look for that. But again, those are typically made to go on taller stems. They're usually for sunflowers, although blue is not. And they are quite large. Yeah, that's a big flower when you're talking Lego scale. All right, let's go ahead and talk about some retired flowers because there are many Lego flowers that are not mentioned here that are really nice quality, and I wish they would have never gotten rid of them. First one is this. Sorry, I'm actually kind of glad they got rid of that. I have never found a good use for this piece. If you have, let me know below. I'd love to see what you do with yours. Those are ugly to me. Sorry, Lego. I don't mean to be a hater, but sometimes, that one was just a miss. They're old. They're very old pieces. All right, the classic flower. I don't know if you guys know this, but 3 of these does fit on one of these small stems, and they actually don't look terrible. You do have to put them flat side up. You can't put the nub side out, but it looks pretty good. I've put this on like tables in interiors before. Not a bad look. It's probably the most compact little cluster of flowers you can do. Here you can do them on the bouquet. Those look pretty good. And of course you can have them stud side out on that one. Got a little more space to work with there. The modern branch, big open center. Still don't love that, but not the worst. And of course what they were made to come with. I think that's the best look because it's classic. And you can put it on the 6th branch as well. I don't use those flowers really at all anymore. I've switched to kind of these, replacing them. But in certain applications, these do look good. I do wish there was more color options, though. They're very limited just because of the age of the part. Some of my favorite retired flowers. These ones from Lego Friends. Why they got rid of this stuff, I'll never know. These are great. I buy them whenever I see them on Brick Owl stores. If I'm doing an order there, I just throw them in. Yellow they come in, and they also come in red. The red ones I love around Christmas time. They look like poinsettias. So I usually do a darker leaf with them. Those look really good. That's on a bouquet, in case you're curious. Don't have a ton of these. Some of them are in my Christmas stuff. And so I have to kind of work with what I had here in my flower box. Now this flower I absolutely love, and I usually use it in yellow. These are like the daffodil mold. Now why don't I have yellow ones right now? These are on the small stem piece. Well, my yellow ones, I have one here to show you. I buy these whenever I see them again. A great piece, and they don't make it anymore, and I wish they were. Those are fantastic daffodils. So a combination of those and the tulips, perfect for spring, especially if you're doing a spring challenge. But look at this. You put this on the older stem piece, little greenery in the middle. Those look fantastic. I wish it was yellow. The red ones are a little less springy for me, but that's what I have to work with. All my yellow ones, I have a lot of these, but they're all in the bike shop mock right now. So I'll be getting them back come summer when I take the spring stuff off. But right now it's daffodils and tulips, and then come summer it will change. Another classic is the rose piece. And these are really cool. Not my favorite. They're a little chunky. Also, yellow roses, not a super popular choice. But they did all these in just yellow and red for whatever reason. But red roses, very popular. I usually do a little darker leaf. This is on the bouquet piece. I think that looks really nice to put on a table or something. And another really handy flower piece. They might still be making some of these, but I haven't seen them in a bit. Are the classic Friends flowers. Now these have a different connection point. These are just these little pin connections. They're made to go in the Friends hair as accessories, but they work really well on these 3-leaf pieces. Limited colors. I think this one comes in like a orangish yellow, the light yellow, and pink. But there are other molds. This one here's a little harder to find. These are the most common. These are a little harder to find. Also limited colors. I think pink, purple, maybe a blue. But this one's actually my favorite. And that comes in pink and purple and also maybe a blue. But same connection design, that pin connector. But really, really good looking flower. Limited usages though, because it only fits in certain parts. A couple of other things. So I know I talked about all these classic, these retired flower pieces. Well, good news. You can still get them, just not from Lego. Look at this. White daffodils. These are Gobricks. Those are awesome. Like, you know, there's a couple times where I'm like, alt bricks, okay, I'm in. One of them, a part's crazy expensive or hard to find. Another one, a recolor that just makes sense. Like, come on, yellow daffodils, and it's retired. That's a no-brainer. I've also got roses. I just realized this is very Italian flag or Mexican flag-esque. It's very Christmas-esque too, but those are roses. The white ones obviously made sense. I think I bought the green ones just to kind of use them as foliage. They look like little heads of lettuce too. That's kind of cool. But yeah, I got roses, and if you're talking these older pin connectors, these are colors that Lego never made. Maybe the pink ones. I'm not sure about that. So pretty cool. You get different colors from, also those are Gobricks. And even this style too. I love that lavender. Lego never made that, and they never made this in red either. So, you know, there are times where alt bricks can be better. If you're talking small detail stuff like flowers, I think that's one of them. And I had to do this. Check this out. There's the daffodils there on the older stems in a cluster. You put that next to your tulips, and we are ready for spring. All right, guys. Well, I hope you liked this video. Hopefully you learned something. Hopefully this wasn't too elementary for you. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. I'm going to do more just like this in the future. If you have any questions, please ask below. I'll do my best to answer them. That's all I have for this time, and we will see you next time.